What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Welcome to another very well-timed basketball show. 5:05, couple minutes after all the big shows in the industry are getting started. Why not? What a great time to jump on the air for an unannounced, unscheduled, impromptu pop-up kind of a show. We can't be missing days. Busy as things might be. 3 sports in action today, but we only had 1 hockey game, 1 baseball game. Wasn't like yesterday. Yesterday got away from me a little bit. Was not prepared for DraftKings to decide to go early and add 4 games to what was already a 12-game hockey slate. They went with all 16 yesterday. Soaked up like 2.5 hours of my day just getting lines in order yesterday. Killed me. Hopefully you guys had a good day as far as NBA or whatever you were playing yesterday, though. We had some good results. My day was better than the day before. Honestly, I only threw 1 lineup into that contest, and despite scoring, I think it was like 430 some odd FanDuel points. It finished in 100th, so nice little top 1%er paid out a decent share for throwing 1 dart at it. But man, things have been high scoring. A lot of OT games to start the season. High scoring contests. But a quick little congrats to Ducking. Ducking took 6th. In a DK, the $2 mini-max over on DK. Nothing outrageous. If you gotten a little bit more from OG Anunoby, it would have been a nicer night, it looks like. OG let us down a little bit, but otherwise, very solid-looking lineup. Ryan Rollins, Colin Sexton, Kelly Oubre, OG, Hartenstein, Tyrese Maxey, Wiggins, and Sarr. Not bad. 336 DK points. So congrats to Ducking on that one. Not bad. Can be done, gang. Can be done. Got some sim results up on the board for you here. Ignore OMP being at the top of the list. That's we've got FanDuel sorted out for the 2 differentiated games over there. It's 7 games on DraftKings. It's 9 games on FanDuel. Welcome to Cujo. What's going on, buddy? A couple people here hanging out to start things off. We'll see who we can collect along the way. Might be a lightly attended show again. That's fine. Got to get this thing going earlier in the day, which we will as things settle down. Right now, it's also just taking a long time to get rotations where I want them. A minute here, a minute there. 0.05 per minute here, 0.05 per minute there. Takes up a lot of time to get these things dialed in. But this is today's sim results hot off the presses. Both sites in action here. Nothing crazy, I don't think, up at the top. We do have a wild card in our very top spot on both sites right now in Russ Westbrook. I've got him at 28 minutes, and he looks pretty spectacular. Keon Ellis is questionable. We saw Russ get the start last night and play 30. I don't think it's out of the question that he goes over 30 again. I was trying to be as conservative as possible with it, and he still came up 86% of the time in DraftKings in the top 150. FanDuel, 55%. Aggressively ahead of the field on both. 6.28 value score on FanDuel, 6.76 to get us started on DraftKings. Not a bad-looking spot. But if he doesn't get that start, that's going to change that situation a little bit. If he's just out there playing those backup, 22, 24 minutes, that's a dramatically different situation. So something to keep an eye on there. But going through Vegas real quick. Cavs at Boston. Cavs favored by 3.5, 234 point total there. Pieces and parts from that game, certainly fine. More interested in the Cavs side of it, I think, going up against that just completely depleted Boston team rather than picking the scraps off of that one. But the high-end guys from Boston are perfectly fine. Orlando at Detroit. Interesting game. 228.5 point total, just a 2-point spread in Orlando's favor on the road. Obviously, very interesting piece. A couple question marks coming out of Detroit as well that we're still waiting on. Atlanta at Brooklyn, ugly one there. Atlanta favored by 8.5 on the road, 238.5 point total. For the amount of time that they're going to be out there, Atlanta's high-end players definitely look worthwhile. Brooklyn, there's value guys galore, but they all suck. Sacramento at Chicago, 5-point spread in Chicago's favor, 238 point total there. Just mentioned Russ. And then just other pieces and parts out of what should be a fairly high-paced game with one of the highest totals on the board. Is that the highest total? Your 117 is your average implied, and we've got 121.5 on the Bulls. So Bulls nicely over the average implied total, one of the higher marks of the slate. Indy at Dallas, 6-point spread there in Dallas's favor at home. Indy just missing everybody. That is an ugly, ugly team, but there's a ton of value there. And there are some better players on that team. So you can see Ray J. Dennis up toward the top of the board. Second spot here. Well, Mac McClung didn't go through the sim. I wonder why. It's not like he was going to come up anyway at 5 points, but just didn't go through, oddly. Mac McClung's on this team now. But Ray J's looking like a solid piece of value. Siakam and Ben Shepherd are both coming up quite a bit in a couple spots later. Further down the board, you've got more pieces and parts. And that's a decent team. It's just, tough matchup against Dallas there. That game comes in with Dallas favored by 6, 228.5 point total. New Orleans going into Denver. Ugly spread, 12.5 point in Denver's favor. Should be an easy one for them. 238.5 point total. Nikola Jokic, one of the top owned players on the DraftKings slate, looking absolutely tremendous. The highest projected player by a mile today. If you can get there, It's well worth it in that spot. Zion questionable in that one. Portland at Utah. 3-point spread in Portland's favor on the road. 235 point total. Pretty healthy there as well. There are pieces and parts in that one. Portland's just good defensively. I think they kind of squash some of the value that might otherwise be there from that Utah squad. Maybe we get to some pieces of Portland. The Lakers and Minnesota and the Memphis and Phoenix game are both on FanDuel, not on DraftKings. 7.5 points in Minnesota's favor. With everybody out again for the Lakers. 225.5 point total. Kind of a low-end game there, but I wouldn't be shocked to see some of those pieces come up on the FanDuel award. And then Memphis at Phoenix, 241 point total, the highest overall on the slate, but that one's not available on DK. That's what threw me off when I was looking at those averages. 1.5 in Memphis's favor on the road in Phoenix. So definitely some interesting stuff on the FanDuel board. You can see there are some guys that are coming up a little bit that don't exist on DK, but nobody more than 25% of Dante DiVincenzo who are actually getting below the field there. So it's kind of interesting that those two late games, while providing pieces, are not looking completely crucial. We are well below the field on Ja. We're well below the field on Austin Reeves, either of whom could obviously explode and bend the slate if you don't have them. So something to keep an eye on there if you're playing on FanDuel. News, I'm sure, will be dropping during the show. But to do it real quick, let's see if we actually got any in the last couple of minutes. Nope, nothing. So news as it went up with the projections, probables, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Usache, Anthony Davis, Nurkic is available, Jackson Hayes is available, Rob Dillingham is available. Questionables, Karis LeVert, Marcus Sasser, Roger Thompson, Keon Ellis, Brendan Williams, Zion Williamson, Cam Johnson, Chris Murray, Matty Thybul, Jalen Clark, Santi Aldama, Vince Williams Jr., and Jalen Green. And then a long list of outs. Darius Garland, Sam Merrill, Max Strus, Jason Tatum, Jamal Cain, Colin Castleton, Mo Wagner, Jaden Ivey, Haywood Highsmith, Zaire Williams, Neek Clifford, Keegan Murray, Zach Collins, Kobe White, Johnny Furphy, Tyrese Halliburton, Cam Jones, Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, Andrew Nemhard. There go all your Pacers. Taylor Peter, Obi Toppin, more Pacers. Dante Exum, Daniel Gafford. Oops, I wrote probable when I meant doubtful on Danny Gafford. Kyrie Irving, Derek Lively is also doubtful. Kevon Looney, DeJounte Murray, Scoot Henderson, Damian Lillard, Robert Williams III, Isaiah Collier, George Niang, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, your key Lakers, Maxi Kleba, Marcus Smart also out, Adu Thiro, Gabe Vincent also out there, and the Edwards out from Minnesota, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Dylan Brooks all also out. Kind of silly. I was laughing at it in Discord the other day. I think more people were out for the NBA slate that I was projecting on Sunday than for the NFL slate. Just completely ridiculous. Let's get into it. We'll cut positions. We'll talk some of these percentages. And I forgot. We got to do it by FanDuel because we got the different slates. So, as usual, when we've got the different slates, we're cutting it by the FanDuel position, but we're still sorted by DK, and we'll talk through the guys on both sites, and then I'll go back up. But again, some 16, 14, 25s, and so on down there. But the biggest piece, Russ Westbrook, assuming we're getting something that looks like 28 minutes, or that it could crest 30, it's a great option. He's not the Russ Westbrook that he once was, but he's still a category filler across the board. 30 in third minutes last night, put up 33.8 fantasy points on FanDuel. That's exactly where you would expect him. 1.07 so far this year, 1.10 last year. He's just very, very cheap for who he is. And we know he's going to want to go out there and get his. So 4,500 Westbrook, as long as he's starting. Or honestly, even if he doesn't, if Keon Ellis is out, I think he does. Keon Ellis is currently questionable. But even if he doesn't and Ellis is out, there's probably still a few minutes there. But it probably drops a little bit in that scenario. But if we get Russ starting, fire away. 86% on DraftKings and way over the field. 55% in our top 150 lineups and way over the field on the FanDuel slate, which is a little bit larger. Enthusiastic about that spot. And then Ray J coming up in the number 2 spot on the DraftKings board. 62% and above the field on Ray J. 6.53 value score considering he comes in at a $3,800 mark. That's just light. In limited action so far, 0.90 per minute this year. 1.20 last year, and again in limited action. Would I expect him to play at 1 and change? No. But I think a healthy 0.9 and somewhere in that territory is perfectly reasonable. Gave him 27 minutes. I got him at 24 fantasy points. 25 and change on FanDuel. So it's not like we're going crazy. Last time out, played 27 and a half minutes, put up 33 and change fantasy points. Right where we want him. That's a ceiling game for this guy. He can go out there and absolutely replicate that. We have seen him do it. So for 3,800 on DraftKings, fire away. 47 on FanDuel. They kind of caught up with that price. 5.48 value score. There is still value there, but it's not runaway freight train value like that 6.53 on DraftKings. And it's just a larger FanDuel slate. Cam Thomas, I knew we were going to see pieces of this Atlanta-Brooklyn game. I don't love it. It's a correct price. You can see it just hits the board flat, 22%, directly level with the field, maybe even a little bit below. Maybe it's like 22 versus 24. On DraftKings, 42% level, probably directly level with the field, if not a little bit above. That one for 6,800, maybe I would consider shaving down a little. Maybe you get to like an angle like this, where you're, 30, 35%, 30% against what would be like 40+% field ownership. Thomas is fine. 5.42 value score on DraftKings is fine. 5.29 on FanDuel is a little better. I just don't love the player because he can go in the tank if he's not scoring. %, assist rate so far this year, 58.5% true shooting, 2.6% rebounding rate. Not a lot of ancillary work from Cam Thomas. There's other guys that can just kind of fill that role, shooting guard only too. Ben Shepherd with 32 minutes projected at just 4,200 on DraftKings, looking pretty solid. We're actually below the field on him on the DK slate at 32. Looks like we're gently below the field at 23%. It's not a huge undercut. We do still have a large chunk of them. The one, caution that Shepherd comes with is just going up against Dallas here. He's already just a 0.66 per minute player last year, 0.78 so far this year in a small sample. So we don't want to get too carried away, even with all the opportunities that exist with people and parts missing everywhere for Indy. Don't want to get too carried away. 5.29 value score, level with the field on FanDuel. Maybe a little undercut. 5.67 is a significant value score on DraftKings. That is our third highest value score among guards. And it's the third guy of 3 that are over the 5.5 that we're looking for over there. So that's why we are getting a large share of them, but the field is getting there more. And there are places to go. We've already got 2 massive pieces of value. You only need so many guys priced in this territory, right? Once you've layered 3 of those guys in, now it's a matter of what are we actually saving our money for? What are we actually buying in all those other spots? Do we have enough extremely expensive guys to fill that out? Sure, we do. We don't necessarily need that third guy of extreme value. Maybe you can get away with the $6,600 Peyton Pritchard play. He comes up at 26% level with the field. Right on the nose at 5 for a value score. It's okay on the DraftKings slate. It's better on FanDuel. We got to him 19% and ahead of the field to illustrate that on FanDuel. A little bit more value in the 5 there. We're looking for 5.5 here, so he came up level with the field, but we actually got in a raw form more of them. There are fewer games over here. Not a bad option. That is another one where it's just, it's just fine at that price. 0.92 per minute last year, 0.93 this year on FanDuel, 9.795 on DraftKings. I'm not crazy enthusiastic about that. Outside of it just is who he is spot for Peyton Pritchard, unless you come up with pieces missing from Boston. Then maybe I would push it a little bit more. 19% on FanDuel, I'm fine getting there. It's not a crazy total to get to. I don't know that I would want to get much more than that 25 on DK, but I think we're fine being level with the field there. Terrence Mann, 3% on FanDuel. Thank you for not coming up very aggressively there. At 3,800, it's another guy of just extreme value that I'm not sure we need that much. As a mixer, yeah, if you're building 150 lineups, you're definitely getting a rotation of those guys. So he's in that. And that's kind of how he came up here. 1 in 5-ish, 19% below the field at small forward. We're cut by FanDuel positioning, so that's why he's up on the board with guards here. But he's obviously got shared positioning with a number of these guys. But I think he's in the mix for those shares. 0.76 per minute, 0.85 this year. Truth's probably somewhere in between, call it 0.8-ish. For that cheap price, he could come through with 20 to 25 DraftKings points, be okay. But again, you don't need to pile certainly a fourth one of those guys in. You probably don't even need a third that many times. That's why we're getting less here and even less as we go down the board. But if you're building a bunch, you rotate him. You're more prioritizing these two. Again, assuming Russ starts. D'Lo, 5,300 on DraftKings, both guard spots, perfectly fine. 5.27 value score works over there today. 17% of them below the field. We got 14% and below the field on Josh Giddey at 8,800. Pretty aggressive projection. I was actually looking for Giddey to see where he would come up. That projection really stood out when I was going through things. 13% above the field, just a 5 value score on FanDuel for 8,900 though, or just under a 5. 5.12 on DraftKings. Those are roughly similar numbers. Kind of surprised. 14% below the field on DK, 13% above the field on FanDuel. I think you can get to more of that. It's a good spot. I gave him 32 minutes. If he goes 34, 35, that obviously is pushing up from mid-40s to 50-point territory very quickly and pretty naturally. Good spot for Josh Giddey. So I don't mind getting a little bit more of Josh Giddey than we got to. I might actually even nudge him, seeing how he comes up here. I might nudge him in projections in the next update just by giving him another minute, nothing artificial. Kente George, flat, 10% on both sides. That is below the field a little bit more firmly than it is on FanDuel, just kind of level with the field over here. 112 per minute so far this season. 1.0 last year. Not a bad option, but 6,700, just about the correct price for a guy like that. %23 usage last year, down slightly at 22.4 so far this year. Ignore that this says 23. That's updated to 2025. Jaylen Brown, firmly above the field on FanDuel at 18%. That's not a standout value score. It's probably just the highest raw total that's coming out of this lower price range at 82. That he's just, since we have money to spend, he's probably just falling into lineups, even though that's not a points per dollar value. And getting Jaylen above the field, I don't mind that. Not bad. Not the best spot in the world with them going up against Cleveland and just that team being generally depleted. But if they're going to do anything, it's going to be on the days that Jaylen does something for you. DraftKings didn't really come up 6% over here. We got 8% of Anthony Black, Trey Jones at 6%, below the field slightly on all those guys. This entire group here, you can see where those prices are outside of $8,400 Jaylen. Those guys can go back and forth with one another if you've got a favorite, if you've got a stance in there, if you just want to pick off the highest end value piece, which is Anthony Black at 5.16 in limited action, but at only 4,000. You can go back and forth, push one of those guys above the field at the expense of the others. They're also in the mix with the same, $3,800 Terrence Mann is in that mix. I'd say $4,200 Ben Shepherd, even though he came up a little bit more, is in that same mix. And if you like one of these guys better, if one of these guys jumps out in news, then we can push shares in their direction. Nobody else really came up that much. Kind of aggressively below the field on both Trey and Jamal Murray. Either one of those guys you can take additional shares of. I don't think we're off projections-wise. I just don't know how much Trey we see. I've got him at 33 minutes. Easily could go 35, 36 if they need it, especially. But I really feel like they're going to run away with this game. Murray, kind of the same thing. I've got him at 36 minutes, though. Just his usual complement. Played 37 last time out. Put up 52 and change on FanDuel. Never a bad option for either one of those guys. You can take a few more shares if you want them. That is a cake matchup for both those teams. Derek White, kind of like Jalen, coming up a little bit ahead of the field, 13% on FanDuel, 512 value there, 7,600, not bad at both guard spots. He's 8,000 point guard only on DraftKings. That's not a great fit. 3% below the field there. 7,600 for Zach LaVine, small forward only, 3% below the field, not a great fit. Little bit more of them, but not aggressive, 6%, slightly above the field on FanDuel. Shaden Sharp, we got a lot of on FanDuel. Level with the field at 28%, maybe a slight undercut there. 6,200 versus 69 and only one position on DraftKings. Didn't really see much value on DK. 0.97 per minute both this year and last. Drew has been playing really well so far. 1.22 per minute versus the 0.83 he put up last year. 1.26 versus 0.83 on DraftKings. DK's got him at 6,800 versus the 65 FanDuel's got him at. That is a dramatically different price point. 519 value score on FanDuel, 5.0 on DraftKings. Just 2% of our lineups in the top 150 on DK, hard undercuts in the field. On FanDuel, 24% exposed. Above the field, not crazy aggressive. The field's there, but we're above the field at that 24. I wouldn't mind having a few additional shares. I feel like that might be more sneaky than it seems like it would be, just given all the different pieces and parts that are on the board and the guard values that are there. 16% just looking for some outliers since we're in the onesie, twosie range over here, but 16% of Donovan Mitchell. Kind of intrigued by that. Just 8,800 on FanDuel, both guard spots. A little bit above the field there. Aggressively above the field on Cooper Flagg. I think they've just got him a lot lower than I do. Is he triple position eligible? I didn't notice that. Triple position eligible. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward. Have we had one of those? Did we have triple positions last year? I don't remember that. That's interesting. Move him around the board. I'm giving him he's played at 0.81 so far. And as I said the other day, typically we're looking at rookie at like 0.7, but you've got your rookies and you've got your rookies. So obviously we give him a little bit more than that. Coming into the season, I had him around a point per minute. I've got him at 33 minutes. We're shaving that down a little bit. 32 FanDuel points, 30 DraftKings points. So we're in the 0.9s. You can take him down a little bit further than that based on how he's been playing. But I have a little bit of faith, especially against that low-end Indy lineup that they're going to be rolling out there. Reasonable expectation of some scoring, some opportunity. So back to the well again on FanDuel at 29%. Did not come up really on DraftKings, 2%. He's 6,600 on DraftKings, point guard only versus 3 positions on FanDuel. Just kind of moving around the board. It seems like he's making things work over there too. But again, you could easily ding him for the 0.81 so far. Dennis Schroeder, 4%, 2%. Onesie, twosie shares on both. We do have some Dyson Daniels coming up. 5,900. We got to him 18% of the time, gently above the field, but that is a big value score. 5.41 value. Also noteworthy, the Keon Ellis value score, 5.44. That's with a 26-minute projection. Kind of looking at Russ in that spot, but if that flips, that's going to be an interesting value play because Keon will pick up a few minutes if he's starting. His value score will go up. I'm not sure the field follows that up the board as aggressively. We're already ahead of the field at 6%. It's one to keep an eye on just depending on how that situation works out. Dyson Daniels, though, 32 minutes, 5,900 is not a big price. He's 64 on DraftKings, shooting guard only. We've got multi-position on the FanDuel board. He's a 1.09 per minute player last year. A lot of it comes from his defense, getting his hands on the ball. When he's able to do that, he shoots up the board. So far this year, he has played at 0.72 FanDuel points per minute, 0.68 on DK versus 1.04 last year. You can't really rely on the 1+ per minute, but you have to at least give him credit into high 0.8s, 0.9s. Got him right in the 0.9s territory today. Just 12% usage so far this year. That's down from 17%. That is a number to watch. If that continues, it obviously does have a little bit of a dent, even though most of his big days came around stocks. But he's coming up a little bit at 18% on the FanDuel board at 59. That's just a good price. A little bit of ceiling there. Nothing, a couple shares of your Demon. That's a weird one. Why the hell would he have landed in a few lineups? Like, all these guys don't get into anything, and then for 4,200, Eager Demon landed in 2 of the top 150. That's just weird. I would ignore him. Up at the top of the board among guards on the FanDuel board, though, again, Austin Reeves, Devin Booker, John Morant, Dante DiVincenzo, all coming up between 15 or between 12 and 25%. Everybody in this group is below the field except for Book. Devin Booker, 12%, a little bit above the field. Knowing that 12% is already above the field on a player like Devin Booker in what should be a fast-paced game with the highest total on the board in the 240s, kind of interested. If I can goose that to 18, 20% and be like double the field, again, on a player like Booker, multi-position eligible, it's just short of a 5 value score. It's not tremendous value, but it is a tremendous player. Kind of like that. If I'm flipping Booker shares at 91 instead of like Austin Reeves for 1 at 93 with the shared shooting guard, but since Ja's coming up below the field and Austin Reeves is coming up below the field, if I can squeeze more of those shares into Devin Booker than some of the other spots that we already talked about, kind of interested. I like the way that like Booker, Jaylen Brown are both coming up. Just getting to players at that level where we're not having to take a huge position, but we can have a nice big position against where the field is. Has a lot of value in it. Let's jump to forwards. Quiet day in chat. Milner's Rock is here. Milner's and a player named Gus is here too. What's up, Gus? Let's get it. Love it, buddy. Just traded Wemby and Reed for Joker and Butler. Is this a good trade? Yeah, I would think that probably works out. I think Wemby's going to be your overall fantasy points leader in categories. Would maybe come down to your format a little bit, but you brought back the next best guy who could obviously easily beat him. I just think that Wemby is made from a different mold and doing things and gonna continue doing things that we've just never seen before. So he's just gonna fill those stat sheets. And I think it ends up being a little bit in his favor, but I think you're easily winning the back end of that trade. So that balances it. And again, the difference between it's still kind of a statement to say I think Wemby's going to outplay Joker. So yeah, good trade, I'd say. I don't think you need to dance in the streets and celebrate winning that trade that aggressively, but I think you do win that trade. Any other takes in chat? Anybody got an opinion on that deal? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Those of you who are here, a handful of people watching. I get that this is a poor time to pick for this show, so I really appreciate everybody who's here. Let's take a look at some of these forwards. What do you say? I don't know why I did that like Mr. Rogers. Let's go over here. What do you say, children? Pascal Siakam coming up at 41% on DK, a little bit differentiated across sites, just 10% on FanDuel. He's 92 on FanDuel. He's 84 on DraftKings. I feel like FanDuel's got that right, kind of the last man standing among the high-end players for Indy right now. Playing at 1.43 per minute FanDuel, 1.46 per minute, just kind of doing everything right now. So, yeah, take some shares. DraftKings, you kind of need him. He's just a good spot filler at that price. I don't expect him to play at 1.46 per minute the entire season. He was a 1.13 player last year. But I think we can expect him to be north of that mark, settle in somewhere in the 1.2 range. MPJ. The idea that both Cam Thomas and MPJ are coming up a lot is giving me heartburn here. 11% on FanDuel below the field, 5.01 value score. I'm okay with 11%. I'm more okay with being below the field. DraftKings, 28%. We are below the field. I think I would look to take maybe a harder undercut to that. I just don't love it, especially if people are going to be there aggressively. Sims are telling us to get away from it a little bit more. 5.06 value score. He's perfectly fine. I just think that that's a top marks kind of a projection. 1.06 per minute so far this year, 0.98 last year. We've got him right in that range for the this year performance. It's come on a minor uptick, 19.7 as far as his usage last year. Has gone up to 20.2. Averaging 19, 5.5, 3.5. He's shooting 40% from three so far. Oh, here are those numbers that I was like, where the hell? Forgot that I had this shaded. It's nothing ludicrous outside of making a few threes. I think he's fine, but I wouldn't get carried away with shares of him. I wouldn't be looking to get ahead of the field. And I think on DraftKings, again, if I can cut that 28 and below the field somewhat to 22, even 25, just take a few extra shares. But if you can get it like 22-ish and a little bit further out ahead of the field and just sink it into some of the other guys in that, kind of price range, like a spot further down, what's the actual difference for 600 less with PJ Washington if you're just looking at it at the forward spot? We got PJ at 27%, also below the field, but that's a 5.34 value score for essentially the same projection. And you're getting to spend that extra 600 on something that might be a major upgrade in another spot. And we've got plenty of value on the board. So I think making minor moves like that probably has some advantages. A couple spots later, Jarris Walker with plenty to do for Indy. I've got him at 29 minutes. He played 26 last time out, averaging about 28. Not a good fantasy option, really. 20.4 fantasy points on FanDuel the last time out. It's a 0.89 per minute player, 0.82 on 0.90 on DraftKings last year. So far this year, 0.79, 0.82. He's fine, but he's only just fine. For the 48 they're asking, 48 power forward center on FanDuel, 45 small forward power forward on the DraftKings slate. He hits a little bit better, 5.61 value score over there. But we are below the field on that. And I'm fine with that. Again, when we're getting guys that are 0.8s, 0.7s, as far as that fantasy point per minute production goes, if we can still take a chunk of them when they're showing value like this, and more than a quarter of lineups in that top 150 have him, but that's still appreciably below the field and shaping a position for us. And I think that's fine because, again, we don't need to get carried away with too many of these guys. And there are a ton of them in that $3,500 to $4,500 price range today. He's just one of those guys. He's in the mix with that group that I highlighted on the guards page. I think Terrence Mann was in that mix at 3,800, 19%. He's got guard eligibility on the FanDuel board. That's why we talked about him already. He didn't come up on FanDuel at 3%, but again, that 19% for 38 is essentially the same as that 27% for 45. You're just moving those pieces back and forth in that mix with a couple of those other guys while prioritizing the two guards at the very top of the value board. Buzelis, Franz, looking a little bit more important on FanDuel. Actually, Franz is the exact same on both, but we're above the field at 20.6% on FanDuel, and we're just with the field at that mark on DraftKings. 5.14 DK value score, 5.15 is a little bit better on FanDuel. 74 versus 75. That is a good piece. 1.20 per minute last year, 1.22 on DraftKings. It's played at 1.02, 1.03 so far. But we know there's more upside than that. Usage has dipped a little bit to start the season, 30.6% down to 25%. I wouldn't expect that to hold at that big a dip for too long. Plenty of upside going to Franz. But Buzelis on FanDuel, 29%. And again, we got him 26% on DraftKings, but that's going below the field. 5.40 value score is a good mark. 5.6 or 5,600 rather. It's Power forward only there versus two forward spots on FanDuel for 58. Just hits the FanDuel board a little bit better at that 5.26 value. 29% is gently above the field. Banchero we got less of. I'd be just as interested in any given lineup, though, in a share of Banchero as I would in Franz. Banchero, a little bit more highly projected for a significantly higher investment, 1,300 more. The 1,000 separation on DraftKings. We did get a little bit more of Paulo on the DraftKings board, 17% over there on the smaller slate. That is below the field, though. This entire chunk of guys below the field. The other key player in there is Evan Mobley, 12%, a little bit below the field there, just a 4.77 value. He's played at 1.29 per minute, an exact match for his mark last year. On FanDuel, we got a little bit more of him. He's 86 power forward and center over there. We got him 16% of the time, a little bit more in the raw form, but more importantly, significantly more than the field on the FanDuel slate. It's another spot that I absolutely would love in terms of just getting good players, good high per minute players at not a major investment of shares. 16% is nothing. That's easy to break off and give to a player like Evan Mobley. And knowing that that 16 mark is that aggressively above the field, well, now, all right, give me a couple more. Let me see if I can find a way to make a bigger investment in that spot. I would say the same about AD. 30%, that's not, light on its own like that 16% is. But if I know that that 30% is that big a smash above the field on the FanDuel slate, absolutely give me a little bit more of AD. 10.7 over there. Played at 1.42 this year, 1.54 last year on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he only came up 10.6% of the time. That's at 10.1 power forward only. A little bit more flex on FanDuel. Where's our spend going? What are our big investments? 11.5 on Jokic. We're getting Jokic, 48.6, and that's below the field on DraftKings. I just wanted to see where the money was going if AD's not coming up. It does look like AD is our second most highly exposed, expensive player. Jokic up here, AD there, with a lot of mid guys in between. But again, this is accounting for multiple iterations of similar plays using those value guys as you look at multiple guys stacked up above AD in there. So among the highest priced players, AD is second most valuable or second most exposed in our top 150 at just 10%, but that's below the field. That's why the field is there more aggressively than we are, though, because he is a piece. Looking for more of those higher priced guys. You've only got 9,000 on Sabonis a few spots later. 6%, that's gently below the field. But what I would say there is knowing that we're kind of aggressively undercutting that one at 5% for 10-1. At 10% rather for 10-1 and a 5.15 value score. Knowing I can save $1,100. You're sacrificing 5 points of raw projection there, but in the value column, you're not really giving that much up. And we're coming up below the field on Sabonis as well in our sim. It's not a great spot. It's played at 1.01 versus 1.34 last year for one thing. But the idea that you could just take this raw ownership north against a lower overall number than where the field is on AD, it's a bigger investment in both raw shares and salary to get ahead of the field on AD if you chose to, than it would be to get on a very similar, in a lot of ways, Sabonis. And Sabonis is going up against Chicago. So not exactly a tough matchup there. But if you can find ways to get to AD, get to AD. He's going up against that Indy team. It's not, that wasn't to suggest that AD had a tough matchup. It was just to illustrate that there wasn't a tough matchup for Sabonis either. 91 at the point for Trey, but again, he didn't really come up that much. Just looking at, again, the spendy guys, 99 on Cade. Barely got any Cade on DraftKings. We didn't get any Cade on FanDuel at 96. I don't love that grind against Orlando, but we just saw that young Philly team go off against them a couple days ago, defying expectations like crazy. Spida at 93 only came up 2%. Yes, I mean, most of the star shares are just getting sunk into Nikola Jokic at nearly 50%. Kind of a wild slate that way. Let me round out the forwards here. Kind of meandering through some of this. Appreciate all you guys who are here hanging out. DraftKings here. Yeah, buddy. Late, but appreciate the guys. Yeah, dude. That was a very nice lineup. Like I said in chat, OG. If OG could have just done his usual thing. A little bit light from OG. Malner says, I'm thinking Wemby is still too thin and injury prone, but you made me laugh. I'm shopping Joker as we speak. Interesting. All right. Yeah, look, if you can continue trading $1 for $1.05 or $1.15 or whatever, as long as you're getting out ahead of that, that's a difficult guy to flip and get like 3 pieces that are going to equal more than him, though, in the raw form. So don't get too cute, I guess is what I'm saying. Looking at the top of the FanDuel board as we cut the forwards for the guys who aren't on that DraftKings slate. We talked about Austin Reeves because he's got guard eligibility. 16% of Julius Randle below the field. Perfectly fine to have any Julius Randle that you want going up against the Lakers without any of their important players. That's, you know, he can go out there and do Julius Randle things. He's played at 1.26 in limited sample this year, just 1.06 last year. No Ant, though, would benefit Randle here just as the primary cog. Triple J didn't really come up 1%, 10% of Grayson Allen below the field. I'm fine with that. I am so sick of getting Grayson Allen in my lineups. He'll be there a little bit, but I'm glad to be below the field and hopefully be rid of him. Jaden McDaniels, 16%. Another guy just 0.94 this year, but 0.87 last year. Grayson Allen's 0.90 this year versus 0.82 last year. Either way, if they're in a lineup, you don't have to rush and take them out, but I never mind seeing them not appear. Or seeing them not appear. That's a weird way to put it. Rui comes up at 9% on FanDuel, just a little odds and ends kind of a piece. 5,300. I do have him at 36 minutes. So if we're just looking to pick off just some cheap or affordably priced minutes at the end of the night and maybe have a flexible spot in one of the late games, so be it. 12% for Jake LaRavia, kind of the same thing over on the FanDuel board. Who did I not do down this way? Talked about Sabonis. DeAndre Hunter coming up a lot more too. He's in just that little pocket of guys right there. Coming up a lot more on FanDuel. That's Domantas Sabonis at 25%. Jaylen Brown at 18 that we talked about. And then DeAndre Hunter in a 28-minute projection. He's only 5,000. Both forward spots gives him a little flex. Playing at 1.01 in his 25 minutes a night in 2 games. 0.94 in more extended action last year. But looks like a decent enough value spot or like mid-board type spot. 29% of Cooper Flag we already talked about. I'm not too happy with that. And that's the only other differentiated guys there. Knockout centers real quick here. We already talked about the most important guy quite a bit. 48% of Jokic. 19% on FanDuel. 5.20. That's just level with the field there. And what I'll say there is if you can get more Nikola Jokic on FanDuel at 12-1, go ahead, do so. Aggressively good situation there, especially considering outside of Jalen Duren, who we do have at a 615 value score here for 5,700 in just a 28-minute projection. That's lighter than what he's been playing. I'll say that. But they're going to need the size. And he was a much more involved player through last year. Just a dude that tends to get in foul trouble in and out of games. But right now where we've got him, that's a monster spot. He's the guy that's center only there that would block you from getting to Jokic shares as you move things around. Both these guys have power forward eligibility. I don't know how often you're getting AD and Jokic together at those aggressive high prices, but probably a few times. Sabonis and AD probably come up a ton together. And then Sabonis and Jokic is pretty easy to reach with Sabonis at only 8,700. So just some interesting back and forth, but that's to say that you can get one of these guys at the forward spot while still getting to AD in the way the FanDuel lineups come together. Over on DraftKings, those guys are a little bit less impactful, coming up through the teens, the single digits, but obviously desirable in the raw scoring sense. And we just talked through how they fit against the Jokic shares. But Jokic, 48%. The field is over 50%. A day like that kind of explains itself as far as just having all those absurd values. That's where the money's getting spent. If you choose to go AD, or like I was saying, you can make an even more differentiated choice by going to Sabonis and then spread out to some of the 8,000s, the high 8s, the 9s, and spend money on 4 quarters instead of $1. Might be that kind of a day where forgoing that Jokic piece a little bit. And that's kind of where the Sim's at, right? While still getting him in half of our lineups almost. The field's got him in half of our lineups plus a little bit. We've got him in just a little under half of our lineups. We're giving back a little bit there. And I think we'd probably be seeing some of those where we're getting more distribution among AD, Sabonis, whoever the other 8s and 9s were that were in that high-end mix. $8,300 Vooch is coming up a little bit. 24% exposed in that high-end Sacramento-Chicago game. Solid projection, 43 and change fantasy points for just 8,300. He's played at 139 per minute so far this year. 127. He'll probably settle back in. We know Vooch pretty well. But 127, 130 kind of territory with upside for more on any given slate. That's a key piece. Not a bad way to spend some differentiated money if you're going away from Jokic at the center spot. And now you've got a ton of money to spend elsewhere. And AD's power forward, so you can still pop AD into that. You've obviously got util and forward and so on to work with as well. Jokic is very likely to be in the just raw winning lineup. He's differentiated by a dozen fantasy points over the next most highly projected guys. He's very expensive. He's well worth it. The most capable guy of breaking the slate. You could also make the argument that there's an easy path to him not playing a full game today, though. Averaging 36 minutes a night, and at these prices, even as good as he is, 167 per minute this year, 177 last year, needs every one of those 36 minutes to really hit value a lot of the time, except for the days where he goes supernova. So there are paths around that number. And again, we're getting him a little lighter than the field, but he's the easy go-to. FanDuel, 19%. Like I said, I think I would look to get a little bit more than that. If I can get to 25 and be ahead of the field on Nikola Jokic, I'd like to. Jarris Walker, just 16% level with the field on FanDuel, 27%, a little bit below the field on DraftKings. We talked about that already. A lower end per minute guy, not offensively priced by any means, but just in that mix of affordable, upper end of that value tier type guys. Vooch, by the way, didn't come up really on FanDuel, just 7% level with the field, or a little undercut to the field. Field's probably 8, 10, somewhere in that territory. Walker Kessler, mix and matchy on FanDuel, just 1% across our top 150. A lot more interested on DraftKings, 15-ish%, a little bit below the field, but another guy you could easily pivot some shares into if you're getting away from here, or you do still have half your lineups that you're looking to put into other centers. So Kessler's in that mix. 1.32 is significant so far for his DraftKings number. He's a 114 player, usually a little bit ahead of that on FanDuel, 119 per minute last year on FanDuel, playing at 137 this year. Just not coming up because FanDuel usually catches up to that on price. 75 on the FanDuel slate versus just 66 on DK, just with the way that things play out on the scoring systems. But a little bit of upside on both. I wouldn't mind having a few additional shares if you're just with the field, 15, 18% on Walker Kessler. I don't think that's a mistake. If you get aggressive about it and go to like 25, you're probably pushing things, though, with that player. Just more a collector of fantasy points than a creator. Wendell Carter, 12% for 54, inoffensive spot, 53 on FanDuel, didn't really come up, 0.6%. We talked about these guys enough already, but again, Jalen Duren, that's a significant looking spot right now. Might knock it down a little. Maybe I shave him down to 26 minutes. Let's see. While I'm waiting for that to load up. News. What do we got? Azar Thompson remains questionable. Ooh, Spider downgraded to questionable. Donovan Mitchell downgraded to questionable. That's obviously impactful. And that's all the news we've gotten. So, yeah, Jalen Duren and Cooper Flagg, most notably on FanDuel. Neither one of them really impacted our sim on the DraftKings board. Both of them hit pretty hard on FanDuel. With Duren, it's the minutes. With Flagg, it's the production so far. The hell is this game? There it is. If I do anything with Duren, it'll be the matter of probably taking a minute, maybe two away. Minor impact would bring him down more toward the field, which would be in like the mid 20s to high 20s. I would say that's this spot. I don't know that that's going to happen. When he's been out there, he's been excellent, 1.53 per minute so far. But he's just kind of been limited. And 28 2 games ago, but 21, 20, and then just 12 minutes. I forget what happened in that one. But they're going to want him out there. It's a matter of him being able to stay out there against those Orlando guys. A little concerned about how aggressively high against the field that is. Again, may slide it down slightly at 1 and change. You know, you could figure if I give him shave 2 minutes off, it's maybe a 3-point swing. Something in that territory. And then bear with me just 1 sec. We'll wrap up momentarily. I just want to see these. Since I pulled it up, he's coming up at 30%. I don't think it's incorrect. I think we got to have our expectations right around here with Cooper Flagg still. I don't love it. Again, he did not really come up at all at 66 on DraftKings, point guard only. Just not relevant. But aggressively so on FanDuel with that triple position eligibility. Oh, you know what? You know what? Let's see. Yeah, okay. They caught up to us. The third-party ownership projections on Cooper Flagg have more than tripled since the show started. He's right in this territory now. So still would probably get him around this level. That's just level with the field now. So I at least feel vindicated about where I had Cooper Flagg projected. Wrapping things up, no really differentiated centers at the top of the FanDuel board in that in those late games. We talked about Triple J already. DeAndre Ayton, 2.6%, 2% of Jared Vanderbilt, despite a decent value score on Vanderbilt, 4,628 minutes. It's a 5.14. A couple few shares might be okay. He's not going to be a popular guy. He's not likely to bend this slate, but maybe can provide a little bit of value differentiation late. like him a little bit better than, say, like Jock Landale, even though Landale's technically at a higher value score at 5.41. It's just you got to sink him into the center spot where we want to get two better players. DraftKings wise, Duran only came up 5% at the 6.9. Tony Bradley, 20-minute projected, 4,000 on FanDuel, didn't come up. 3,500 on DK is a little bit relevant. It's a 5.25 value score for one thing. Puts him in 5% of our lineups-ish in our top 150, but that is looking aggressively below the field. If you gave him like 22 minutes, he would start to come up more and more at that very, very cheap price. $25 last time out. Yeah, I owe him a little bit. That's the one that stands out here on DraftKings. I don't love getting aggressive about it, though. Tony Bradley, really? We do have a lot of missing bodies there, though. I was considering him in the starting role, but I didn't get over the top with minutes. I just kind of distributed some of those minutes around just because I didn't want to get overexcited about it. Knowing the field's getting there a little bit, though, maybe he picks up another 2 minutes, and that would make him look pretty decent over here. I wouldn't go nuts with it still. It would probably go to like 10% and maybe closer to the field. Where is, let's see. This needs to go to DraftKings. Hold on. 6 o'clock already. How did that happen? Be out of here shortly. Whew. Wow. And they don't really have him differentiated at all from where I'm at. It's maybe for going a little bit just of the raw value, but like I've been highlighting multiple times on this show, we've got so many of these guys on DraftKings today that you're like, who cares? It's Tony Bradley. I don't think we need to go nuts. The field's at like nearly 20% for, they've got him at the same minutes, but a couple few fantasy points further ahead than I do. Not entirely sure that's correct. I think I'd rather be a little bit below the field. And just because if I'm going away from Jokic at the center spot, and again, yeah, you do have util, I get it. But like, I want to sink so many of those shares into guys like Vooch, guys like Wendell Carter, Mobley. You know, Mobley's a forward. Sabonis, Duran even. I don't know that I'm immediately going cheapo Tony Bradley value there because I'm already rotating those value spots among guards and, you know, shooting guards and small forwards and so forth. I don't love that. And we've already, even if you're going to value here, you've got $3,300 right here with center eligibility on, all right, it's Jay Huff. Same 20 minutes. Arguably the lower end fantasy producer. That's also mix and matchy. We got 4,500 up here on Jarris Walker. That's small forward, power forward, but you get it. There are value spots galore on this slate. Getting carried away with Tony Bradley. I don't love it. If you want to take it up again, if you go to 10, again, considering that the field's at 20, so be it. Double that exposure and take a little bit more. I don't know that that's for me. KP came up 10% of the time on FanDuel. Barely hit the board on DraftKings at 7,000. Got him projected at 26 minutes. We could see him play a little bit more. We could also see him play a little bit less, given the matchup there. Keta, not really influencing things. 4% of Okongwu on FanDuel, not at all on DraftKings. 2% of Filipowski, nobody really relevant down this way. And then just 5-6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Allen, Nurk, guys like that. 5 6 on the Jalen Durans, Jared Al Any of those guys is perfectly fine. They're all at relatively appropriate salaries, but we're not getting much of them. We're below the field on most of them. And really, among everybody on this screen, there's not a single guy we're above the field on here. All those guys are here. And really, there's not that many of them. How are we not above the field on most of these guys? It's got to be a few spots. Aggressively so there, pretty aggressively there. And I guess just level with the field on all those kind of take care of it. It's odd to see not that many other standout plays outside of these two, though. There's more of them on FanDuel if you're looking over there. A lot more aggressive arrows. Larger slate, but not that much larger. More to work with, more to play with on FanDuel today, I'd say. What about knocks it out? You got it, male nurses. Anytime. That's what we're here for, man. About an hour on the nose for that show. We will get this show sorted out, get it earlier in the day. Like I said, once the season kind of starts flowing and I can just do minutes and projections like, a little bit faster and everything, we'll get this hour or so earlier in the day where we're not conflicting with everything else. And really appreciate all you guys who were here. Hit the like and subscribe. Check out rotoscouts.com if you happen to be new, just stumbling across us. Promo code week free for any of you guys, though. It doesn't have to be your first time subscribing, just has to be a new weekly. Week free still gets you a free week. At some point, I'll shut that off. People are probably taking multiple weeks, but that's okay. Renews at regular price after the first week, though. So if you're doing that, you got to keep canceling and redoing it. That's just a pain in the ass. Anyway, let me get out of here, you guys. Let me get the updates in. News will be hitting the site shortly. Update will be up there momentarily. Just a couple quick things to address. But good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do. Either in Discord, free, link below in the description of this video, or on Twitter at RotoScouts. Send those to me. Make me feel good during the night when you guys are winning. If I'm not, make me feel good if I'm winning and you're winning as well. I like seeing you guys come in second, right when I'm in first. If I'm not in first, you guys, I love seeing you in first. But that'll wrap it up, guys. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. And we'll be back tomorrow for more. Later.